John Grove joining Locked On Big 12 today from Wildcat 91.9. And no secret that the guy from Wildcat 91.9 thinks that Kansas State's going to win the Big 12 conference. Everybody seems to believe that Utah is right there at the top. I think Kansas has a legitimate shot to go to Arlington. And I know earlier in the show you gave them some of their flowers. They're a good football program. People have talked about dark horses like West Virginia or Oklahoma State, who brings everybody back, or Iowa State. For you, why is it Kansas State who will win the Big 12 in football in 2024?
Well, Drake, quite frankly, I was being a little bit generous towards Kansas there for a second. But now that I got my purple shades on, right here, just pretend that the shades are purple. I definitely think the high-end potential is there for Kansas State to win the Big 12. And a lot of that, of course, is based around Avery Johnson. And I think the rest of our roster is certainly very, very talented. And if if it were like Will Howard coming back at quarterback for Kansas State, I think the expectations would be reasonable to be in the 8 to 10 win range. All right. I feel like the impact of Avery Johnson, he adds a bit more steam to that hype as well. And, there's been a lot of national reporters out there, like an Andy Staples of On3, who said a couple weeks back that the ceiling for K-State was not just making the playoffs, but winning a game in the playoffs. If you were going to make the playoff as a Big 12 champion, if you get a bye as a top 4 seed, so you're talking about winning a playoff game, all of a sudden you get into the semifinals. So in a way, that's certainly a lot of high praise. But you also look at the roster, Drake, and say, hey, wait a second. A lot of it sets up, and it's dangerous for me to kind of go towards this area because anything can happen with the offseason with the NIL and transfer portal. But if you can retain everybody from this season, this roster is really poised to make a massive run for 2025. But you can't really rely on that with all the mitigated factors outside of what's just happening on the field and the eligibility as for everybody. But you also can't just waste opportunities with Avery Johnson at quarterback. All right. I think there's such a unique position for Kansas State where you have an unbelievable stud at the best position of the field in your backyard. You kept it in the state. You have them wearing purple and white. All right. If the recruitment was occurring this season with the dynamics that were at play with recruiting and conference realignment, I think it would probably been more difficult for Avery Johnson to commit to the program. So while you have him, you need to maximize that, especially in a world where we've already painted a picture of where the Big 12 is at. It's a fight for respect. It's really a long-term future being a major college football or college athletics program. That's, to me, what's on the line for Kansas State. So you better go win that league and make a playoff appearance while you have Avery Johnson at the helm, and really no better time to do so than the present or this upcoming season.
So for a general viewer and even for an analyst, when I look at Kansas State and say, okay, Ben Sinnott's gone. Okay, Cooper Beebe is gone. Okay, Will Howard is gone. You've lost your starting quarterback, the best offensive lineman in the entire conference, and maybe the most dangerous, or at least the most fun for me to watch, pass catcher in the league last season. I love watching Sinnott play tight end. You lose those three guys, how can you say that this Kansas State team is better than last year's offensively when three major pieces are gone?
Well, it's no question that the offensive line is going to have to be partly rebuilt. Of course, you got several guys that played last year that will take the step up in leadership roles, but you're losing 2 NFL offensive linemen, including one of the best in the country, and Cooper Beebe. Correct. So that won't be easy. Several changes will have to be made there. There will also be some changes, you got to point this out as well, in the coaching staff. I love the addition of Matt Wells to the coaching staff, but you're putting him as a co-offensive coordinator with Connor Riley. Quite frankly, to me, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's not a whole lot of cohesion there. Colin Klein, of course, departed for Texas A&M, so a definite question to answer there. But, there's a reason Chris Klieman is getting paid the big bucks while I'm not in the field. So there goes that. I also still wonder about the depth, particularly on the interior of the defensive line, with several of the departures with Jay Clifton and Daniel Green. So you can go nitpick of certain things here or there with the roster. But to answer your question, Drake, I think they just have a lot of buy-in talent. And the sky is, the cosmos is the limit for this K-State offense, especially when you have an explosive backfield with Avery Johnson, DJ Gittens, and the little dynamo from Derby, Kansas, and Dylan Edwards. And with the new Big 12 as well, I think the schedule is manageable enough. I don't think it's over the top easy by any stretch of the imagination, but
yeah.
I think it's definitely very manageable. So it's reasonable enough to say that the expectations should get to Arlington. It's hard for me to say what the reasonable expectation should be. Okay, you have to go win this league, because I think that's going to be in 2025. I think there are legitimately 7 teams that can make an argument for this year, for the Big 12 championship, knowing that their ceiling is incredibly high as well. But I think this is a year where K-State should look at it as, all right, I mean, this should be the year where the Wildcats make a run for a Big 12 championship. I believe that, and a lot of the Big 12 media outlets also tend to believe that as well, with the preseason media rankings as well.
Was it the Texas game last year where the offense fell apart late?
It wasn't late. It fell apart early. It fell apart
I think it was the Texas game that I vividly remember. It was the 2-point conversion. It was the 2-point conversion where I thought, what is Colin Klein smoking? What is happening right now?
Okay.
Are we upset that Colin Klein's gone?
In terms of making several decisions like that, and part of me is a little bit satisfied. But I think another thing to point out is that it's not only Colin Klein that's the one making several of these late game decisions. It is also Chris Klieman, and we've seen this several times where the play calling gets to get a little too tight, too conservative here or there. A lot of the people that I talk to from K-State is like, I mean, it's your last chance to win in Austin. You got to go out with a bang. I was like, dude, I mean, Malik Murphy was stalling. The Texas offense was stalling. They had to settle on field goals. I know Chris Tennant missed a field goal around the final few minutes of that game, but he made one as the final seconds ticked down. So, I mean, I don't know. Personally, I would have gone for the field goal as well, considering that you are also on the same kind of tier as Texas in terms of making routes towards a Big 12 championship game. If Chris Tennant was able to make a field goal after that, and if K-State was able to score after that, a touchdown or so, who knows what Texas would have done, because their offense could have possibly stalled. But it's so it goes. Sometimes in football, you make decisions in which it's in the best interest of a roster, but some people like me will tend to disagree.
It was that play where I was like, all right, if Colin Klein leaves, I'm okay. I'll live. And I still think I'm going to live. John, for those that are listening to the show today, whether they're Kansas State fans or not, they want to find more of your work, where can they go?
Well, obviously, it is the Cat Attack Pod. Of course, for all the updates and notifications, you guys can listen to Cat Attack. Follow Cat Attack on Twitter, Cat Attack Pod. You guys can listen to the show on Wildcat 91.9 live every Tuesday and Thursday nights from 6 to 7. We also got several shows out on Spotify. Drake, we might have to get you on as a kind of a special guest as well.
100%, man. Would love to return the favor anytime. John, thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely, no worries.
And for those that are listening, thank you for joining the biggest, the number one podcast in the number one Big 12 podcast in America. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Doce Grande.